come on, Sammy, come on. I know you can hear us. Just pull through. You got this, you got this, you got this. We're here. And before we knew it, they looked at us and they said, we're so sorry. Time of death. They called it and they said, we're so sorry. We couldn't save your son. We're going to give you a little time with him. And they cleared the room. The entire medical team left. And our whole nightmare from 3 years ago happened all over again. And we just looked at each other, and it's like we could see it in each other's eyes, like, how is this happening to us again? What did we miss? What do we have left? You know, it was the darkest moment of our entire lives. What do we have left to live for? Both of our kids are gone. And we both stood next to him and we cried. And we were hugging him, as you can imagine, and talking to him and telling him how grateful we are that we got to be his parents. How proud we are to be his parents and the kind of person he is. And for the time that we had together, and that we were sorry that we couldn't save you. We're sorry. We tried our very best. And at that time, I said a prayer and kind of reached out in that prayer to our youngest son, who we had lost already. And as we're there crying over him, my husband goes, oh my God, he's moving. He's moving. And I look down and Sammy's chin is going just a couple times like that. And my husband, who's a former paramedic, said he's trying to get an agonal breath. He's trying to get a breath. And I mean, he was just pronounced dead. And so my husband screams, he's moving. And the doctors come rushing in, look over, and they're, oh, it's probably just a reflex. That happens sometimes. And then a couple seconds go by, and I look at Sammy, and his entire neck turned purple, and we see his carotid artery start going. And my husband screams, there's a heartbeat! There's a heartbeat! And the team of these incredibly experienced doctors in a world-renowned hospital screamed, oh, and came running in and worked to revive him.
They had never seen that before ever in their history. Every doctor that's treated him has never seen what's happened to him happen.
Because they had worked on him for so long.
That, and then, I mean, to take the story over, so he comes back to life there. They steady him, and they send him up to the ICU, where it was a very, very long night of, touch and go the entire night, trying to keep him alive. And the next day, my wife and I are meeting with the doctors, and they're preparing us for brain dead. He's not going to survive. His organs are failing. His neurological signs have disappeared. And again, my wife and I go back in the room, and we just sit and we talk to him. My wife goes up and starts whispering prayers in his ears. We put his phone right by his head to play all of his music. He's very musical. So we have his music playing, and we're talking to him and praying to him. And later that day, just staring at him again, I noticed that his eyes were moving, and not just randomly moving, like responding to my wife's voice. While they're closed, you could see his eyes just moving, and every time my wife would talk. And this was a couple hours later, and again, I'm like, he's moving. So the doctor comes in and looks at it, and he's like, I can't tell if it's real or not. And I'm like, watch. So I start asking him questions, and I tell him, I said, blink once for yes, twice for no. And we start asking him pretty complicated questions. Started simple and got complicated just to make sure they weren't reactions. Right. And he was fully answering questions. And again, a doctor that's been doing this 20, 30 years in his ICU his whole career said, I've never seen this before in my life. He's neurologically there. That shouldn't happen. He should not be like that. And he eventually opened his eyes later that day as well. He forced his eyes open. And this was well before they actually wanted him to wake up. He was on heavy sedation because he was ventilated. He was on a lot of medicines. I mean, he was not in a place that any human wants to wake up to.
The nurses in the ICU called me the tank, apparently, because I would just, keep pushing through the sedation.
Can't put him under.
Right. Well, so we had two miracle moments there, where in the ER and then again in the ICU, and then we had doctors all over the hospital coming to see him, just to see the kid that's alive and neurologically sound after all that CPR, and it just shouldn't have happened that way. That's not how it happens.
This was the same doctor who had just hours before said, you need to start preparing yourselves. We don't see any brain activity. His organs are shutting down. He may not make it through the night. If he makes it, he'll be brain dead. And I remember hearing the doctor saying it, looking at his face, crying, and then sucking it back up, you know, within 2 minutes and saying, we're going back in there. And what I said to Sammy in his ear in that moment that my husband just referred to is I said to him, I said, listen, they're telling us you're not going to make it, but you've already proven them wrong once. You've already come back to life after being pronounced dead. And I know you're going to do it again. I know you are. So we're not going to listen to them. We're going to show them that you can do this. And that's what I said to him. And I swear it was minutes later that my husband starts going, I think his eyes are moving. I think they're moving under his lids. And so then everything that he said, you know, came after that. But to know that it was the same doctor who said, hey, he's probably not going to make it through the night. I got to let you know this. When he came in and saw him blinking once for yes and twice for no, he was astounded. This is a man who has a doctor who has worked all over the world and spent a lifetime doing this. So it was unbelievable.